Nikki Haley, the U.S. ambassador to the United Nations during the Trump administration and former governor of South Carolina, announced her presidential bid in a video statement this morning. Let's watch.
Police in South Carolina are looking for a gunman following a shooting at a church.
Several victims. We don't know the severity.
We turned away from fear toward God and the values that still make our country the freest and greatest in the world. We must turn in that direction again. Republicans have lost the popular vote in 7 out of the last 8 presidential elections. That has to change. Joe Biden's record is abysmal, but that shouldn't come as a surprise. The Washington establishment has failed us over and over and over again. It's time for a new generation of leadership to rediscover fiscal responsibility, secure our border, and strengthen our country, our pride, and our purpose. Some people look at America and see vulnerability. The socialist left sees an opportunity to rewrite history. China and Russia are on the march. They all think we can be bullied, kicked around. You should know this about me. I don't put up with bullies. And when you kick back, it hurts them more if you're wearing heels. I'm Nikki Haley, and I'm running for president.
Haley is the first GOP candidate to openly challenge former President Trump. She's also the first woman of color and the 5th woman ever to run for the Republican presidential nomination. Haley is a child of Indian immigrants. Meanwhile, according to analysis from 538, her net favorability is lower than Trump's and another potential challenger, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, although it is higher than former Vice President Mike Pence's popularity. What do you think of this? I mean, you've said here to me on the show that you don't think that she has a shot at all.
I think she's the Tim Pawlenty of Bobby Jindals. I don't know. She's not. Look, and I don't have any real issue with her. I don't think there is an opening for the message she has. I mean, that was a very kind of soundbitey message. That was a very...
Really? Because I feel like I see her lane. I'm not saying she can occupy it.
I saw her lane in 2007. I don't see what the lane is now.
So based on what she's saying in the ad, making reference to the fact that Republicans haven't secured the popular vote in ages, and kind of opening with the Charleston shooting, that seems to me to be a straight up normie appeal, saying Republicans have gotten weird, they've been kind of cringy over some of this race stuff. Well, she can't say that. Political messaging isn't, hey, here's my agenda. There's some subtlety to it. I got the clear message that she wants to make Republicans normal again and make it not embarrassing for people to be.
No, she wants to make them Bush again.
Well, that's fine. To a lot of people, that was normal. And I hate to break it to you, Bush
too. A lot of Democrats
won twice in a way that Donald Trump wasn't able to do. I mean, we'll see what happens, but so far hasn't been able to do.
But there's just no appetite for this among Republican primary voters.
But wait a minute,
whatsoever.
That is inconsistent with the argument that people have been making that Ron DeSantis is the normal version of Trump and that people want to return to normalcy and people don't want the shenanigans. Now, I understand that she has to compete probably in all likelihood with Ron DeSantis. I also understand that Ron DeSantis has been doing a better job of both seeming relatively normal as compared to Trump, while also from a policy perspective advancing the same kind of culture war issues that made Trump popular to begin with.
Trump without the baggage.
And it's not clear that Nikki Haley can actually
I think Republican voters might very
thing.
well want Trump without the baggage. That's what we're going to test. But
right.
She's Trump without the baggage. She's not Trump. There's no baggage and there's no Trump.
I agree, but this is what she's clearly after. She's identifying the without the baggage need or desire from the Republican Party and trying to fill that void. Now, something that you've said before, or what we discussed before on the show, is whether or not this is in fact a political run for the vice presidency and whether or not she's presenting herself as a viable, diverse vice presidential candidate who, again, has no baggage.
I think her foreign policy views are very out of step with the Republican Party, with the mood of the country and the Republican Party. She's extremely hawkish. She's a neoconservative. I frankly think her economic views, which I probably like, are also out of step with the mood of the country and where the Republican primary base is. I appreciate that she wants to be less weird Republican on, like, whether drag queens are an existential threat to America. I may agree with that. I don't know that that's a winning message. And then she has all those she has genuine liabilities on her thinking on foreign policy and other things. Additionally, I don't know where does she position herself with respect to Trump? She's jumped back and forth on that a lot. She served in his administration. She says nice things about him. Then she says it's time to move on. She says, well, I'm only going to run if he doesn't run. He's clearly running. She's running anyway. I don't think she's particularly well known even.
No?
Look, no,
you don't think,
I don't. No.
Among Republicans, you don't think she's particularly
We forget
well?
that,
compared
DeSantis
to,
isn't even particularly well known.
Sure, if it's by that metric, then sure.
Yeah.
I don't know. I do think that there's an advantage to looking different from the rest of the pack. I do think that her being a woman and a woman of color does signal to some voters that she's going to be acceptable. Perhaps she has a broader reach. I don't think this is true. Like, Democrats have also struggled with this belief that magically, if you just throw a melanated person on the stage, every melanated person in America will vote for them, forget their party affiliation, forget their politics, and just fall in line. But I get the argument, and I get why she would be an attractive VP candidate. But I also wanted to ask you about what you make of some of the Republicans leaning so strongly into the identity politics aspect of this, not just being a woman of color, but the high heels comment, which seems to be an allusion to some statements she made years ago about her high heels that apparently were met with a lot of plaudits in
She's
support.
known for high heel-based remarks.
Yeah,
if that's true, then I missed that.
Apparently, she said, I think this was back in 2012, I wear I think the media is a little frightened of women. I wear high heels, and it's not a fashion statement. It's for ammunition. Another point, she referred to her stilettos, which this reporter would put at 4 inches minimum, saying that back home in South Carolina, quote, I've got a completely male Senate. Do I want to use these for kicking? Sometimes I do.
Look, I have heard her speak before. She's a really good speech giver. She's going to be good, talented on a debate stage. I'm not saying she has no political talents. I think to her core, she is not going to be the right candidate for this political moment.
Look, I'm interested to see what happens if Republicans really start embracing, as they have done, I will say, the identity politics when it works out for them, and how that affects their ability to criticize Democrats, particularly someone like Joe Biden.
I mean, they've always loved
for being overly obsessed with these things. Because right now, Joe Biden is the most normie white dude ever, and the people love him. If Republicans try to come back and occupy this space that Democrats have occupied and lost with for a number of years of saying, I'm wearing heels, I'm a woman, and I'm going to kick them, I'm diverse, all of these kinds of things, it'll be a very interesting contrast.
I think Republicans do that defensively. They say, oh, you say we're racist and sexist and
it's not defensive if you're going up against someone like,
here's a gay trans black woman in heels running for,
they can say it's defensive, but right now you've got Joe Biden, who is the presumptive Democratic nominee, and he is the most normie white dude who's probably never said the word intersectional his entire life, and that's an interesting contrast that they're teeing up.
Obligated to pick, literally forced, nearly at philosophical gunpoint, to pick a woman for his VP. Who are these
powerful people that forced Joe Biden to pick a black woman?
The media, whoever was the host of that debate, who was like, "You're going to pick a woman, right?"
To pick a black woman, but completely abandon the black agenda. Black people have no power in this country, and Joe Biden knows which is why he's kicked them in the nuts.
I'm not saying black people. I'm not saying black people forced him.
So who did?
The elite media.
Okay. Well, the elite media is also routinely ignored. And the idea that there would be any consequences,
but he said, yes, I will, don't hurt me. That was basically his answer.
No, he didn't say, yes, I will, don't hurt me. Who else was he going to pick? There was absolutely no issue with him picking Kamala Harris. It was convenient and easy for him, so he did it. If he had any interest in picking anybody else, he was frankly probably going to pick Amy Klobuchar for the George Floyd protests kicked off. And it turned out that Amy Klobuchar had let the cops that killed George Floyd off the hook a couple of years earlier. So I don't buy into the notion that anybody had any power to coerce Joe Biden to pick Kamala Harris, that it was done under force or any kind of pressure. He did it because it was an easy layup.
Like he wanted to pick Mayor Pete, but felt like he had to pick a woman. That he sort of said something along those lines. I see my son in him. The good son.
I can't speak to that. I do think that there was probably some significant pressure to pick a woman. Just the optics of it, I think, would have looked kind of crap to just have two white men, even if Pete Buttigieg is historic for other reasons. But yeah, the point of the matter is, I think at the end of the day, Joe Biden, perhaps to his credit, at least to his political credit, has resisted the basest appeal that the Democratic Party has used for years, which is to say, vote for me, I'm diverse.
Well,
and
obviously,
it doesn't matter.
he can't do that. He's not diverse. He can't say that.
Oh, I don't think that that's true. There have been a number of white candidates who do a lot of pandering on racial grounds. Hillary Clinton
Only
walked
the
around
second
talking
Catholic
about
candidate.
Hillary Clinton walking around talking about hot sauce in her purse. All of them have done this.
What did hot sauce in her purse signify?
That she went on a black radio show and tried to commune with the people by indicating that she too liked well-seasoned food so much so that she carried hot sauce around in her purse. Which, by the way, I think it's probably a true thing. I'm not denying that she does it, but it was perceived as a kind of the height of political pandering.
You know how I feel about spicy.
And Joe Biden. Robby, if you ever go on the Breakfast Club, I fully anticipate that there will not be a significant amount of simpatico between you and Charlamagne the God. It would not surprise me that you have very different tastes in food and other things.
I will not pander. I will not claim that I get any other kind of salsa than mild.
You do well. By the way, when Bernie went on that show, he didn't do any pandering.
Bernie doesn't, he doesn't pander in
and
that
people
respect.
respect him for it. Everyone anticipates that he's going to eat bland food, and nobody cares.
I don't think I don't know. Biden did. It was an example of pandering to pick Kamala Harris.
Sure. My issue is that I don't think that he did it under any pressure. I think, look, when you look at the vice presidential candidates, she was one of the. She was one of the natural picks. I don't think he considered a lot of other options that weren't black. I think that they had to be something. I don't think he was going to pick a straight white man, but there were a lot of other options available to him. And the point of the matter is, he is not an identity politics candidate. He's not. I don't care how you frame it. The fact of a black woman being Miss BP doesn't make someone identity politics. You can't being black, despite what so many of the commenters sometimes believe, being a black person does not make you identity politics. Words have meaning. And Joe Biden has resisted a lot of those characterizations. Racial diversity is not the same thing as appealing or leaning into a certain kind of identity first messaging that precludes substantive issues. And certainly you can do both at the same time. But what I'm seeing from this ad is that Nikki Haley thinks that there's a real Normie lane for her. It'll be interesting to see whether or not that makes her at very least a more appealing vice presidential candidate to someone potentially even like DeSantis, who, though he is appealing, has more Normie appeal than Trump, still supports a lot of crazy stuff from a policy perspective that turned off a lot of voters in midterms when you're talking about a lot of the focus on the trans issues and stuff like that. The abortion issues, things like that. Those are issues that are hurting Republicans, and having a woman on the ticket who might potentially put people at ease. She
is a potential VP pick, but I find that unlikely as well. But we'll see.
So what do you think it's for? Just selling books?
Yeah. Talk show circuit. Maybe we'll get her on Rising. She can live out her deepest fantasy to be interviewed by you and I.
I would look forward to it.
All right, we'll have more Rising right after this.